Frankenstein, Dracula, werewolves, phantoms, zombies, gorgons, mad scientists, abominable snowmen. These are the monsters that they have created. Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Ingrid Pitt, Veronica Carson, Oliver Reed, Madeline Smith, Barbara Shelley, Michael Gow, Hazel Court, Bartine Beswick. These are the people that faced the horrors. Jimmy Sangster, Terrence Fisher, Michael Carreras, Peter Sasdy, John Elder, Evan Jones, Anthony Hines. These are the people who created the horrors behind Hammer Studios. Welcome to Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, your gateway into classic horror cinema, brought to you by Broken Lighthouse Pictures and Something Wicked Entertainment. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner, operator of Something Wicked Entertainment Events and Conversations in Horror, the mainstay podcast, and welcome to our program. If you are not familiar with how we do our show, what we do is we take an individual movie and then we kind of have a conversation, kind of like a critique and analysis of these movies. Now, if you've been listening to our regular podcast, Conversations in Horror, this one is a little bit different because we only focus on the movies from the Hammer Studios, which mostly consists of movies from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when Hammer Studios was at its heyday, and it was a huge and influential studio for the horror market. But we will eventually get around to some of the more modern films they've been producing, because the Hammer studio is not gone. It's just maybe a little forgotten a little bit. So we're going to bring it back. So today, I want to welcome you all to my special guest, which is Dave Watkins. We're always happy to have him come back. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks for having me back on. Looking forward to talking about the film that you're about to announce.
And we're about to announce the movie that we're about to talk about because it's one of the movies that got me into Hammer Studio films. One of the first ones I watched. I've seen this one probably more so than any of the other ones, and that is The Mummy from 1959. As you know, everybody who's listening, you know I'm a huge Mummy fan, which is why this is probably the first one I ended up watching and then gravitated to others. But I'd like to get a little bit more information from you, Dave, in regards to how you came to The Mummy and what was your impressions on the movie?
Yeah, so I saw this film. I believe I saw it when I was younger, and I kind of vaguely remember seeing it when I was younger, and then I did see it again. It probably been like maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, something like that. I bought the Blu-ray of it to check it back out, and it's like I think I've always kind of liked the film. This is the third major Hammer horror film that from the Universal Studios Monsters. So this is the third one that came out, and it was the first time that they actually had approval from Universal to use their monsters, because the Mummy is, unlike Dracula and Frankenstein, who were based on novels, the Mummy was Universal kind of started that, and it was based on a real mummy, King Tut.
So, one of the things I really loved about this movie is the fact that, and everyone knows, or people who have been listening to the podcast knows, I'm a huge Peter Cushing fan. So I immediately gravitated to the film for this. Let me rephrase it. I've been watching Peter Cushing for a very long time, actually. Of all the horror icons out there and the Hammer Studio horror icons out there, Peter Cushing is the one I kind of knew of very early on. Definitely in my teens. So that's one of the reasons why this one was I gravitated towards this one, because Peter Cushing was in it and I knew who he was. Most of the other,
you just jogged a memory.
Yeah, okay.
I do. And why I went into this movie knowing that Christopher Lee was in it as well. But I remember the first time I saw it being a little disappointed, because Christopher Lee, even though he's in it, you can hardly see his face because he's a mummy.
Which is funny because it's the opposite of the Universal horror films where Boris Karloff plays both Karras and the Mummy. This one, Christopher Lee just plays the Mummy.
Well, he does play Karras in a flashback, but it's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
far into the film, about halfway into the film. Oh,
yeah,
I think it's around 50 something minutes into this hour and 27
yeah.
minute movie. But he actually does have a little bit of dialogue in that. But yeah, but mo for the most part, you can kind of tell it's him a little bit. But if you didn't
Yeah.
know it was him, you may not know. Now,
That's a good point.
yeah, but if you look at the Universal Studios films, this one is not based on the 1932 film. It's based on the second Mummy movie they made called The Mummy's Hand, and it follows the plot of that for the most part, but it also incorporates like a little bit from the next two, like the Mummy's Tomb and the Mummy's
Yeah,
Ghost,
yeah,
and but mostly the Mummy's Hand. But it does, which I actually like the Mummy's Hand a lot. But it has a little bit of the original Mummy in it, just a
just a
little
little.
two or three little things. But for the most part, it is a remake of those three films.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always kind of considered this a remake. I forget how many because I didn't watch the later Universal horror Mummy movies till later. I always kind of saw the second film, the Mummy's Hand, as
Yeah.
the kind of precursor for this one. It's interesting because now that I've seen all of the Universal Mummy movies now, I can now see that influence on this one. I don't think I would have thought about it till you just mentioned it. I was like, oh yeah, oh, shit, yeah,
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, especially the second one, but it does have like things like a swamp in there that's similar to like
yes,
the
yeah.
Mummy's Ghost. Takes place, I think, in New Orleans, or at least they shot it there. Suddenly there's a swamp, you know.
I
But
think that one is in New Orleans. I think that was why the
yeah, yeah,
continuity is so screwed up.
yeah, yeah.
Or in those movies, the continuity was so screwed up. Uh,
Right. Yeah, yeah. This one, I guess it's in England, so I mean, I guess there are swamps there. I think
they
the
call it
original,
bog.
yeah, yeah, the bog. They call it a bog, and at some point they do call it a swamp. But they
Mhm.
also, I guess, in the original Mummy series, it actually takes place in the States, where this one takes place in Egypt and England are the two locations of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I like to say that at the very beginning of this, that takes place in Egypt, almost seems like a separate little story before we get to England section
Right.
because Peter Cushing's character is immobile. I had forgotten about that.
Right.
I had forgotten that he was immobile for that first part because he is immobile because of some accident with his leg, and then of course his I think it's his father. I think it's his father and
It's
yeah.
Stephen Bannon. His name's John Banning.
Yeah, I can't remember if they actually said if they're a father and son.
They are. They are.
Okay,
So he's actually there with his uncle too. His
yeah,
uncle's
no,
name's Joseph Wimple or
Whipple.
something. Yeah. And so they're at a family event going on here. They're doing a dig. They're trying to find this mummy's tomb.
Hmm.
And but yeah, I mean, why do you think that is? Why do you think it is he's got this leg issue, which it carries throughout the rest of the movie? But do you think it serves a plot device, or you think there's a reason why he's injured at the beginning?
I don't know for sure, but I do know that in Hollywood, if in television, if an actor sustains an accident while filming, they just kind of write it into the story. And I actually had the idea that maybe something happened to Peter Cushing, and they just wrote it into the story, and that's why he's still limping throughout the rest of the movie because they didn't give him time for him to heal completely, so they
Yeah,
just wrote it into the story. That's
yeah, I
the
don't, yeah, yeah.
easiest way.
I don't know. I mean, that may be I can't think of a. I mean, it actually adds a little bit to his character, and it
Yeah.
makes it kind of interesting at the beginning that he's separated from the initial tomb entering,
Yes.
but it ends up not. You know, a lot of times in these mummy movies, when they enter the tomb, everybody gets cursed.
Mhm.
But he doesn't go in there, but he's still cursed anyway. I guess he eventually goes in there, so it doesn't matter if he's injured or not because it still plays the same way. So
Mhm.
that's why I'm kind of thinking the same thing you're thinking that there was some maybe he was injured to begin with, but because it
Yeah,
doesn't really matter that he's
no, it
injured.
deserves more research, and I haven't read individual research for this film itself. I've read over the course of a couple decades. There are plenty of great books on the Hammer films themselves, but I haven't read anything specifically about this film. Just kind of in general, the entire Mummy series. So I don't know. Or behind the scenes, I do have a good Peter Cushing book that I need to get around to finishing.
Yeah. I got a Peter Cushing set from It's called the Peter Cushing Curiosities. I hadn't watched that yet. Was that from? That is that the Severin, I believe.
Uh,
No, yeah,
no. The book I have is Peter Cushing and oh my God, I can't think of his name. Christopher
Christopher
Lee.
Lee.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a book. It's a book about both of them and the kind of like the films that they did together. I haven't read that one yet. I read Peter Cushing's books on his own autobiography, stuff like that, and also a lot of Hammer Studio books. But I took a break a few years back after I read too many of them, and now I haven't gone back. I have like four of them waiting on my shelf. So
yeah,
maybe after reading those, I will be able to figure out what actually happened to Peter Cushing during
yeah, yeah. You can do an edit on this podcast and just kind of throw it in there and
uh,
like fact check us on it. You know, so,
oh my
it's
God.
like no, but I mean, yeah. I actually I think it does. It does help introduce the character. It's kind of cool that they're so worried about him, and it does put the father character. The uncle's telling him, "Hey, he needs to get you need to get him out of here and get
Yeah.
his leg fixed." But the father and the son are both fixated on going in checking out the mummy's tomb. They're so into that they're not going to go get his leg fixed. So I think it does help character wise. It helps build some character, but it is kind of it is kind of like it does seem like what we're talking about earlier.
Yeah. Well,
Let's
the
go to
one thing it does help in the beginning sequence of the movie is that when they go into the tomb, Wimple and his father Stephen go into there, and it's immediately they come across the tomb, and then Wimple leaves to go tell uh
yeah,
Peter Cushing's character John. um Now the
yeah,
father's left in there, and he finds the scroll of life, and he starts reading from it on his own, and of course that resurrects the mummy. Karis is the mummy, and of course we don't know what happens at that point in the very beginning of the film, because we just know that when Wimple returns, the father is kind of like having a stroke like thing. So uh
uh,
we don't know what he saw yet. It's really cool that they save what he actually saw for later in the film as a reveal. I actually really like that aspect of it, and so we
it,
don't see it all at once.
right. And it is that's the part of the film that's like the original Mummy
Mhm.
from the first Boris Karloff Mummy because that's how it kind of starts. Especially the flashback scene we see later. I guess we should hold off on talking about it, but it is odd that they move it to later, but it does seem like I would think the
Much
script probably
later.
I would think the script probably originally had it at the beginning, but then it was probably an editing choice to move it. That's just conjecture on my part, but to me, it feels like an editing choice. And this also, and now that you mentioned what you just did, this could have been a plot thing too, because in order when you're writing a script, you got to move people from A to B to whatever. But say they have the uncle and in order for the father to encounter the mummy by himself, he has to be in there by himself. So in
Mhm.
order to get him in there by himself, the uncle has to leave to go get the son. So maybe it was intentional all along because he does need to be in there by himself.
Yeah. Well, it also sets up that aspect where, his father is after this whole incident, he's not taken home to the coalesce. He's more or less taken to a mental hospital because his mental faculties have all gone to crap over time.
Well, he
Um,
like the guy in the original Mummy movie. They actually talk about what happens to him because he sees the mummy, loses his mind, starts
yeah.
laughing like hell, and then they say like he goes into a mental institution and
Mhm.
eventually perishes just from the shock of it. And so the father it goes into similar shock state where he hasn't spoke for years. It's been 3 years, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden he wakes back up. Here's what it says. It shows the sign of the nursing home. It says nursing home for mentally disordered. That's how it's written on the sign. So,
Yeah, I may have known that too. I was like, oh,
yeah,
that's an interesting way to do it. But
yeah,
I actually like that because this gives the story a little bit more credence for why they bring back the mummy, or what's his name? Shit. The character that brings back the mummy.
yes. Is it Mayhemet Bay?
Bang.
Wears a really awesome, very red fez,
I,
and, but
yeah.
this character is the main villain other than the mummy of it, and he's kind of billed like a lot lower, I think, than he should be. He's almost to
Yes.
me he should have been like third build or maybe fourth, but third for sure. I'm sorry, I'm fourth for sure, or
Yeah.
either third. But because the Isabel and
Isabel.
also plays the Princess Ananka gets third billing, but I think he's underbilled. But at the same time, he has a very large part in the film. He's a major antagonist of the film.
Well, yeah, because in the very opening sequence, he's trying to get them not to go into the tomb, and then of course he's the one who's outside the tomb as they enter the tomb and all that. He curses them, and then of course he follows through on that curse later on when he follows them to England. It just takes him 3 years to get there, but yeah, he
Yeah, yeah.
follows there.
Well, yeah, I don't know what we find out later exactly more about that, but he is a devout, very religious. He
Yes.
worships Karnak, who is a spirit, like an Egyptian god, and he's very they kind of come in and they've really upset him to the point that he wants revenge.
Hmm. Yeah, which is no, I'll think about that later. Uh, but that's essentially what after Stephen is sent off to the mental hospital, whatever we want to call it. John and Wimple are still at the site, the Egyptian site, and they more or less, I guess, blow it up in order when they're leaving. I was like, that was kind of weird that they did that, but I'm like not 100% sure why they would do that if because they're leaving the site to finally go to England, but
Yeah,
they blow it up, which I didn't never do
yeah,
that.
it's a good point.
Did you? I was like,
Yeah.
that just seemed odd to me.
All
Um,
right. Well, yeah, I think I got that, but like now it is odd, I agree. But you would think they would take everything and try to sell it. But I think what they've done is is because the father got sick, so they're worried about other people getting sick, so they blow it up so nobody else can go in there.
you think so? Okay,
Maybe
I,
that's
I,
what
I
I'm
don't know
thinking.
either. I don't know
Because
either.
it doesn't actually show the contents of the tomb. You
No.
don't, you don't see it in a museum like you do in the other mummy movies. You don't see. I think they closed it so nobody else could get back in there.
Mm.
But I do want to. We didn't talk about this. The tomb itself and the set design of the tomb. What did you
Okay.
think about that?
Very elaborate, but I kind of think that they're kind of going. I don't know if you've ever seen the actual like the traveling exhibit of Tutankhamun's
I haven't seen it, no.
it's an amazing and elaborate
Yeah,
exhibit, and I think that they were, and they would have known what all this looks like because that was very hugely famous, one of
yeah,
the most famous.
yeah. I've seen pictures of it, but I haven't
Yeah,
actually seen it.
uh, it's really elaborate, really cool to see in person, and I think that was probably the inspiration for why there's so much stuff and how much detail they put in that set. At least I'm hoping so
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's
I like, yeah, yeah. I like the. I mean, I got a few like nitpicks about it, but I do like. It has a very surreal feeling to it, especially when they walk into it, and it's got
yeah,
some odd green lighting, which it looks.
yeah.
It's off, but it kind of adds a surrealistic type of feeling to those sequences that take place in there. Uh, some of the stuff it looks a little too wooden made out to me because yeah, a lot of times when you see like real mummy stuff, it seems to be made out of not really wood, and I guess more like what is it? Was it usually made out of like some kind of cement or something to that nature or plaster?
A lot of it is actually made from wood, and it's got a covering. Shit, I wish I could remember the metal that covers a lot of the wood and stuff in there. But a lot of the artifacts were actually still wooden. That
Okay,
didn't have to deal with like the actual sarcophagus and all that type of stuff because that's all much more elaborate. But some of the artifacts that were contained within the tomb itself would be wood because that was I don't know because I wouldn't think wood would be readily available in Egypt, but there was a lot
yeah,
of
yeah.
stuff there.
But if you look at with the where Karras, the mummy that Christopher Lee plays, he's inside of like a wall. On the wall, it's like
Oh,
he has this kind of wooden like thing in the wall that opens up. I still think it looks cool, but I just kind of question the wood kind of feel to that stuff, and
yeah.
also question more than anything when they're entering the tomb and there's a lock or something on there that's held together by a piece of like what looks like rope that would have decayed over time, and then they cut it with a knife to get in.
I know. You know what? I never thought about that till I rewatched it for the podcast. I'm like, huh. It never dawned on me when I'm enjoying the movie just as a movie
Yeah.
that
I mean,
they
obviously, yeah, you got to get from point A to B. Now, really, I love scenes in these mummy movies that take place in Egypt, and I would actually wouldn't mind the whole movie taking place
yeah
in Egypt. But obviously those scenes are the most expensive scenes to produce because they got to make this place that isn't doesn't really exist anymore. You know?
yeah yeah, probably on a soundstage, so a lot of that stuff has to be really elaborate. I agree with you on that. It looks really cool, and I don't really know, to be honest with you, at the time this was made, if they were going just if they're the Roger Corman way, which is try and make it look cool but cheap as possible,
Yeah, right.
opposed to trying to make it look 100% authentic. But I do think that these scenes are among the more elaborate production value locations and setups as opposed to some of the other ones later on, except for Bay's home
Oh
altar
yeah, yeah.
thing that he has.
We
I
got
did.
yeah.
I may question the type of tomb that Karis is in because it's upright, but for me it's kind of cool just to see that open and then him walk out. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a cool.
odd.
It is a cool little. Yeah, it is a cool little bit, and you see it open earlier on, and then later you see it even more. But
Yeah,
I like the way it looks outside of the tomb too, even though you can kind of tell it's on the soundstage as well. But I think it still looks really cool the outside of it.
because it's Egypt. Egypt looks
Yeah. It's gonna look good in Egypt. Yeah, yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. This
oh,
this movie, like I have the Blu-ray copy of it. I think it looks really good already, but I would really like to see like a 4K upgrade of it. I think it would be it would look even better.
well, I
Maybe.
think your Blu-ray copy probably looks better than my copy. Because for everyone listening, we've on many occasions have talked about the multiple different versions on like DVD versus Blu-ray versus 4K, and I think that these films, especially because of the type of filming that they use on Hammer films, would benefit from a Blu-ray or a 4K version as opposed to my DVD version where the colors are a little bit more muted, especially mine because
Yeah.
probably one of the earlier DVD versions of the movie. So I didn't see all that saturated color, although I am readily aware that there are because I do own a lot of them that are on Blu-ray. So they look amazing on Blu-ray, but this one I just didn't own on Blu-ray. So
This film was shot in Technicolor too,
yeah,
so the very vivid colors, especially in some of the key stuff like the fez that the guy's wearing. That Mohammed was it Mohammed
yeah,
Bey?
I just
Yeah,
love
that
A.
yeah Bey. Yeah, which is in the original Mummy, the character's name's Ardent Bey, or that's
Yeah,
a pseudonym that he calls himself. And there's a character in the Brandon Fraser Mummies movies called Ardent Bey.
yeah.
And this actor, the actor that plays him in this one. Uh, I did not write his name down, but
I don't think I wrote that his name down either.
jeez, I thought I had it written down, but I do have it written down somewhere. Where is this? But George Pastel, but he actually plays another descendant of Bay in the next film, the next Hammer film. They made four Mummy films, and the was it Curse of the Mummy's Tomb or something like that.
Yeah.
He does return playing a very similar character,
Hmm. And for everyone
but yeah.
who's listening to the show, we will get to the rest of the movies as we progress in this program.
You- We should go over real quick, go over a little bit of the opening credits, which are done over like Egyptian, I guess, kind of drawings of ancient
Mhm.
Egyptian, which looks pretty cool. And we find out that it is directed again by Terrence Fisher, who directed the previous two Hammer films that we talked about.
He was one of the mainstays of directing films for
Yeah,
him. So we're gonna bring Terrence Fisher's name up a lot. And
yeah.
there are plenty of great books out there if you ever want to know about Terrence Fisher. Hammer and Terrence Fisher are one and the same for a lot of people.
Right. I wonder if everyone else is like Terrence Fisher again. When am I going to get my shot at making a Hammer horror movie?
Uh, you
But
know,
it's a great team though. A great
yeah,
team. They this is the third time they've done this, and even the same DP, Jack Asher, and you can
yep.
tell that he's progressed even more than he has since the other two films with some of his lighting stuff that he does in this film, making it look even darker in some areas, or more of that kind of shadowy on their faces and things of that nature.
Well, especially when the mummy's walking through the woods all the time.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
those things look great because of the way they use the shadows and the townspeople, certain townspeople hiding within the bushes and they don't see him when he steps out, stuff like that. I mean, yeah.
A really cool shot is when you see him outside of the mental institution, and they have a light pool in the very back, right down the road, where you see it's lit there, and it's kind of lit a little bit in the front, but it's a lot of shadowy. It's kind of like cross lit a little bit. And the mummy walks through that. It looks that's a really great lighting on that.
Yeah, I only noticed a lot of this stuff watching it this last time for the podcast because like I think it's probably been about five. I saw this before COVID. This is what throws me off, everybody. 5 years ago was COVID, so probably
Yeah,
6 years ago was the last time I saw the
yeah,
movie.
yeah. Now I hear that. I lost a couple of years in my head because of that. All
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah,
kind of, I mean, I don't, I never stopped working during COVID, but there's something about all that is just so much noise everywhere.
yeah.
Just so it's noise everywhere. There's still noise from it in a way, but I think it did take away a lot from a lot of people though.
Oh yeah, yeah, most definitely. The only thing the only real thing I never stopped working either. I think I had like a month off. That's what I think I had in my job. I think I had a month off. And then I went. All it did was allow me to catch up on a lot of shitty movies I never bothered to catch up on
Yeah.
until I had the time to sit down and watch. I watched a lot of shitty movies for about a year and a half.
Right. And then,
I mean, a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like when you're working, you always think, man, I would like to be watching a shitty movie right now. But then when you're not working and you're sitting there watching shitty movies, you're like, damn, I should be working, you know?
That's the truth. So I didn't watch any Hammer films during that time.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus. I didn't watch any Hammer films like that. Although, that would have been a good time for me to watch all of the films in order, which for listeners, I've been telling people as we go through the Frankenstein and Dracula films, this is my first opportunity to watch them all in order as they were released, which is great. I've always watched them all out of order. Same with the Mummy films. The Mummy Shroud was one I just watched maybe a year ago. So I've never watched them in order. I've just seen the first one like 10 or 15 times.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I actually like the other, at least the second one. I like that one pretty good, but this one's the better of them clearly. And
oh yeah.
just like like with the Dracula and the Frankenstein, the first ones are usually better than the rest of them.
Mm.
Some people might disagree. I think some people think the Brides of Dracula and which the Brides of Dracula is as good as the first one, but I don't know. But on the Mummy though, the Mummy for sure, to me anyway, it's the best of the four mummies that Hammer produced. So
All
back
right.
back at yeah, back in the insane asylum, he's
Yeah.
talking to his dad.
So this is really interesting because there's been no peep of anybody. Bay has not come back, but and his dad has more or less been completely comatose slash catatonic for 3 years, and then all of a sudden we get the hint of Bay's so-called return, and that prompts Stephen to come out of his catatonic state as though he feels that the mummy is coming back. Like he has some psychic connection to,
Right.
which I thought was an interesting thing to have in the film, because that's something we don't really see in any other mummy movie per se. They just have this second sight after experiencing and seeing the mummy, or causing the mummy to come alive for the very first time. He now has some type of connection with the mummy. So,
He says something real interesting to John when he goes to see him. And this is a line I think we've seen in a lot of horror movies. But and I don't know if this is the first time it's been said, but he tells him he's thinking about the mummy and he's like, it would kill us all. Talking about how it's going to come kill all of them. And that's something we've heard like hundreds of times. I've even used it in a movie I wrote before. So it's not knowing it, but he's but he does say that line, and it's a pretty effective line when he says it, and with that, and it's a very true line because that mummy is coming, and it's coming to kill all of them that were involved with the dig in Egypt.
Yeah. Which is interesting because first we just think it's him and Wimple that the mummy would come after because we don't have a sense that John was ever in there when all this went down. But like you said earlier, it doesn't matter if he went in at that same time that Bay was watching them or when he was associated with everything that the desecration of the
Yeah,
as Bay sees it, and therefore he's part of this curse, which I found interesting. I did think that it was weird to have the mummy being driven by Coach to Bay's place, and it falls into the bog. But
yeah. He goes and hires the two most drunken idiots he can find to transport the mummy, and then it falls into the bog. Um, do you think that's on purpose, or do you think that just accidentally happened?
the bog, it falls
Well,
into the bog, are hiring the idiots.
well, I guess both. I mean, they went back to the bar and got drunk before, which
Yeah,
is drinking Bass L, which is pretty cool. I remember in the original Invisible Man, they got Bass L in there, but then they get drunk and then they can't drive worth the shit, and then they wreck.
that's the weird thing is they have a job. They know they have a job. Yet you're drinking before they do the job, and then they get spooked. and the
Yeah,
and yeah, I found it hilarious. I found it really hilarious. I thought it was fine because it lightens up certain moments of the film. I think that's
yeah.
the only levity in the entire film. Actually, I think is these two characters, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you got that other guy that's kind of similar, like another kind of drunken guy that shows later, or is he
Oh
one of
yeah,
the
yeah.
same?
The
Yeah,
one guy that the mummy finds in the
yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
first person who comes across the mummy, and then
yeah,
he goes back to the bar to tell the people at the bar
yeah,
and drink.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I
But
forgot about him.
this like sequence though in the bog, it looks really awesome.
It does.
It's like the first time it happens, it's kind of at I guess it was is the sun coming up or is it going down? But it's all red looking. It looks really cool.
Well, it looks cool also because it's actually one of the few actions type scenes you have because you're watching the sequence of these two driving a carriage and then they're getting spooked out and then of course the crate at that point just falls into the bog and we watch it sink slowly knowing that the mummy's in there. We're thinking, oh shit, well
Yeah.
there goes the mummy. But the thing is, when we see the sequence where Bay calls out the mummy is fucking cool because he just slowly comes out of this freaking mug and murk and
Yeah.
like he looks disgusting when he comes out, which kind of makes him look disgusting for the rest of the film because he's been in a freaking bog.
Yeah. And
Um,
it's like, and just like, and then he's got that red lighting on him. It's such an
yeah,
awesome shot. It's so great. And then he comes walking out of it, and you got this like him working with the bait character. Now, something that happens before that, um, the police call the Bay guy over there because he's like, they talk to him, and he doesn't seem like he cares that much that it crashed into there. But I guess because who knows exactly what his plan was, but I guess he plans on bringing him back anyway, so he don't care that he has to bring him out of the bog for some reason, even though he just lost his crate. He has a sarcophagus for him anyway. Where do you think that sarcophagus came from that he has for the mummy? This is a
the
different one that was in the than what was in the tomb.
is it different? I couldn't tell if it was different than the same. I didn't pay attention enough, and I wanted to go back and re look at the beginning sequence, but I hadn't.
Well, he
Because
comes out. Remember, he comes out of that box looking thing, and the one he has in his house is looks like like the regular sarcophagus that you see in other films.
well, no, I kept thinking of the one that's in Bay's lair. Looked the
Yeah,
same as the one that was in the original tomb.
yeah.
The
That,
crate
that the princess was in, or because
that he was in. Remember when at the very beginning of the film when he comes out of the tomb to scare Stephen, that one up against the wall. Remember
but that one's like really boxy looking. This one's round looking. So
this one were very similar. See, I have to go. I meant to go back and rewatch that just to make sure of my ideals on it, and I didn't
yeah,
do it. I wish I had because now we're
but
talking about it.
yeah, yeah. But the one he has at his house looks really cool. In
It
any
does look
extent,
cool.
yeah.
I just couldn't understand if you already had that in your house, then why the hell are you bringing the mummy in a crate?
Well, I don't want to transport that because it could get broken, but he don't care. I mean, like, he does. I guess that's like he don't care about the crate, but now he's got the mummy and it comes out and it's when he goes, he sends the mummy to kill the dad, and that is like really freaking scary because they put the dad in a padded cell because he's been freaking
Yeah.
out. So they put it because he broke a window because he saw the mummy driving down the road and he broke a window, like yelling about the mummy being out there. And then so they put him in a padded cell. He's completely helpless to defend himself against the mummy. He can't get out of the room.
And
The
no one can
thing,
hear him.
yeah, the
No
thing
one.
comes. There's a window with a friggin' like a gate on it, like a welded gate, and it's so strong it busts through the window and through the gate, which that is friggin' scary when that happens.
Well, it's scarier when he climbs in through the window to get to him. I was
Yeah,
like, damn. Because
yeah,
that's a really effective scene because you're actually seeing him. Like this isn't the mummy from the old Universal where he's slow walking and doesn't like this one may be
yeah,
slow walking, but he ain't weak. He is
yeah.
strong.
He just like busted, like he just like busted that shit open though, and just he just crawls in, and he even like in a regular room, you'd be in pretty bad shape as you see later, but here this guy's completely helpless, can't get out of the room.
Oh, and no one could hear him scream. It was I thought that was one I thought that was a much more effective death actually probably the most effective death scene in the entire movie actually. Um But I thought that was a great way to show the mummy killing someone right off the bat. I like, damn,
Yeah,
because Bay is not going to waste any time getting his revenge on these people. Like,
yeah, he's clearly very he's very committed to getting revenge. He's gone come a long ways,
yeah.
a lot of trouble to get this revenge.
Well, it may have taken them 3 years to get the money to come to the UK, but he got it. He's
Yeah.
there.
He's on a mission from Karnak
Yeah,
to kill these guys. And the second guy he killed when he kills the uncle, that's pretty scary too though, because he busts through the door. He like really tears the damn door open, tears it off. I think I read somewhere now about Christopher Lee dislocating his shoulder. I think he did that when he busted through that door when he was shooting that scene.
interesting.
If I read so like unfortunately I didn't have any on the version I had doesn't have any extras on it to tell you about things like that. But if you watch that scene, it does look like he may have gotten hung up at the door a little bit when he busts through it. But it's very awesome. Even if I mean it sucks if they hurt it dislocated his shoulder, but it looks badass when that door busts open and you can see parts of the door like broken from where it was latched together.
They were authentic back then.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it is very elaborate with the way they do those setups, and they're in wide shots, so you see it all. That and that was one of the great. I think we mentioned this in either Frankenstein or Dracula. The way that was shot, there was a lot of wide angles.
Right.
Angle shots in there, and there's this one. I think they're much more better utilized. I guess is the best word I'm trying to say because the scenes of the mummy walking through the woods are wide angle shots. The scenes right here when he busts into the mental institution to get to the father, and the scene here, like the normally you'd be seeing in a modern day horror film, you see these in close-ups or extreme close-ups, and you'd see little bits and pieces of it at canted angles and stuff. And these are kind of straight on wide shots, and yet they're still effective. So
Right. And yeah, and if he did hurt his shoulder while doing that shot, he continues through. He
yeah,
plows through the shot, comes after the guy. It does kind of cut after he gets closer to him,
yeah,
but there is a long part of that shot that is wide. He starts with like they're having the conversation and then the uncle walks in front of the door and it's pretty wide and then the door behind him just busts open. So it's like it's not like a it had to be timed and it wasn't like you're saying like it wasn't like all of a sudden the door starts to kind of open and then cuts to a closer shot of the
yeah,
door, because it all happened in one take there.
yeah. And Peter Cushing's character, John, just seems completely inadequate because he
Yeah,
shoots the mummy.
yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't- I always wonder why someone, if a monster's coming at you, why don't you shoot him in the head?
Right, yeah, yeah. I mean,
But
shoot
no,
him in the
it's
head.
it's still cool because
Yeah,
when John talks to the inspector and the inspector doesn't really believe his story. The thing is, we 100% believe in the commitment that Peter Cushing gives to his character, and we believe him 100%, not just because we saw it as an audience, but because he actually sells it, and we're wondering why the heck the inspector doesn't believe it. Because he only believes in what he can see in front of his eyes. I can't. I don't have the
Yeah.
words correct. He has something like that he says. I wish I'd
Yeah.
written it down now.
Now, the inspector, do note that the first time you see this character is 51 minutes into the film, and he kind of takes over a little bit briefly with his investigation. It kind of goes to several scenes of him looking into it, but it's kind of odd to introduce a character so far into the film.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, I don't know. It's just an observation. But after that, then that's when it goes into. Well, I think I mean, kind of like before that happened, we do see the flashback sequence with Christopher Lee as the mummy or the high priest in the flashback. Because that he's talking with his uncle when he sees that happen.
Yes.
And what did you think about that whole sequence?
I think for anyone who's expecting to see Christopher Lee in the movie, they needed that whole sequence in there because that is literally the only time in the entire movie where you actually recognize that's Christopher Lee playing the character. Like we were kind of we had that earlier in the film. I do. You have me thinking now though. So next time I watch this, I'll have to put this to mind. That I wonder if that sequence really was meant to be like the opening of the movie before instead of this flashback sequence where the characters are telling the story of what happened. Um,
Well, uh, maybe. I mean, I wasn't actually. That was not what I intended to say. I was talking about the father sequence, which happens after we introduce the inspector. But that is a possibility. Like if you look at some of the other movies, especially the one with Brendan Fraser, all that happens at the beginning of
yeah,
that film instead of like in a very convoluted like sequence.
but,
But like it happens in Lord of the Rings too, where like that was kind of a big thing during that time period where they just shove a like here's exposition, shove it in your face for like a good 2 or 3 minutes.
yeah, but this is longer than that. This is a good long sequence where we
Yeah.
see all like we get to see kind of everything that revolves around his character in the film and how he became a living mummy, so to speak. We see all of that in that whole sequence. I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to go back. I mean, maybe, because it's the second act, they need that story filler sequence, or maybe it was too long to put at the beginning. Who knows? Uh,
But even like, but it's funny too, like when you seeing him. Well, I guess that one makes a little more sense, but like that flashback, the other one makes less sense as far as what the characters know or don't know. But this one, it kind of goes into it, and you find out that I think it was a similar plot in the original Mummy, where he was in love with the princess, and they were in love with each other, and then he
yeah,
tries to bring her back to life, and then he gets busted, and then they kill his
yeah.
ass,
I mean,
and
that's
then
pretty much the same.
yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the same sequence from the original Universal one. So
Yeah, right. So that one came from that too, and it's also like the Egyptians were they're so crazy they killed everybody who knew about the tomb. It was like a ridiculous amount of people. So it's just like okay, we got about 100 people here. We're going to kill them all because they know where the tomb is.
well, I hate to say this, but with these type of movies, you have to have some type of suspension of disbelief because essentially they bury this guy that they completely dismiss and think that he's evil with the way for him to come back to life, the
Yeah,
scroll of life.
yeah,
They're like,
right.
"Oh, if you're gonna kill him in this elaborate way, why bring him? Why leave with the body a means to bring it back to life?" Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, or maybe they thought it was torture to keep him alive as a mummy. That was part of the torture.
It's the logic of mummy movies, and we love the mummy movies regardless of these
Yeah,
strange.
oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're not expecting any script to be perfect, and now, I mean, they might try to flesh out things a little bit more, maybe now in some movies. Some movies they don't.
Mhm.
Some of them the logic is just as ridiculous. But like the biggest editing thing I think was the flashback sequence with the dad, which happens after he talks to the inspector, and you see what happened to the dad in
Yeah.
that sequence. And it's not like he found out about it. It's not like Peter Cushing's character was told the story.
No.
It just cuts to the flashback. It shows what happened to the dad, and then it comes back into present day. And it's not like Peter Cushing's character got the information and it's like, oh, that's what happened.
Yeah.
Now the audience knows, but which was that what Mamet Bay, the dad like woke the mummy up, like we talked about earlier. The mummy came out, did something similar to what happened to the 1931 mummy movie or 1932 mummy. The dad goes crazy. Bay comes in there. He sees what happens. He takes the scroll and he takes the mummy with him, and that's we find out all how all that happened. Not that any of that is particularly surprising.
No.
It's not like it was like, oh, whoa, that was like the Sixth Sense reveal when that happened.
I think the biggest reveal was that Bay got the scroll. To be honest with you, I think that was the big thing. That's how he's able to control the mummy because up until that point, you don't really know why or how he's controlling the mummy. But
Right.
he saw the mummy. He took the scroll, and then eventually took the mummy, and then that's how all of this came to be. And he was able to do his revenge, despite the fact that if he was really a follower, he probably wouldn't have gone into the tomb to begin with.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So.
That's definitely like that would not have helped the plot if he didn't go into the tomb though and get the scroll.
That being said, everyone who's listening, we still love these movies and having fun with these movies. In with years and the decades that have passed since this film has seen, and it's over 50 years old. This movie is not this is a movie that's over 50 years old, over the lifetime of all of us here talking about it now. So we have a little bit more fun with this. But when this movie came out, that the ideal of Egyptian tombs and stuff like that was still a fascination with people, and so this is probably the scariest mummy movie that ever had been attempted at the time, because it wasn't a slow moving mummy like the one from Universal. This was like he killed people, and they were always a violent way. He strangled them to death. He broke into mental institutions and broke into your house to get to you.
Yeah. I think they definitely improved upon. There's definitely some things in this film that from the original series that was improved upon. Obviously the color, that even the black and white does have a nice creepy kind of feel to it in the original Mummy films, but they did, like you said, like he's definitely more scary in this one than any of the previous installments.
Yeah, yeah.
Christopher Lee does you can kind of tell it's him if you know it's him, but he does a good job as the mummy. Even either when he's playing the mummy, he doesn't look very Egyptian in the flashback scenes.
Most of them don't look Egyptian in the flashback scenes. We have a
Suspension of disbelief. Yeah,
disbelief.
But that's how they used to do things. And I really, to me, I'd rather see him like acting like he's Egyptian than not see Christopher Lee's face ever in the film.
Same here. Same here.
Yeah, so it's like,
Nah, I mean, I'll agree with you on that one. It's almost kind of like the whole thing with what was the first the Curse of Frankenstein that we discussed. He doesn't have much screen time as the monster in that movie, and he doesn't talk in that movie. I'd rather him have that scene in this movie where he actually talks and speaks, and like he literally is the priest, so he's talking about everything.
right, yeah.
And I like Christopher Lee talking, but I was so used to him being the character or the actor who played a lot of characters that didn't speak, like in the Dracula movies. He doesn't have many lines in the Dracula movies.
They're probably like when they saw him doing the scene in the Mummy, they're like, "Damn, this motherfucker can act."
So yeah, I mean, the thing is, great to see him in that whole flashback scene is you have to have that. If you're gonna advertise Chris release in this movie, you guys have him somewhere where people can recognize him. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, yeah. I think especially after Dracula, they were wanting to see his face more
Mhm.
because clearly in Frankenstein you don't see it that much, and Dracula was like, okay, we got Christopher Lee in the film, we got to see him. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So then we move on to the final person that the mummy is being sent after, and that's John himself. John already knows that the mummy's coming after him because he comes after him once and does not succeed because Isabel is there, and the mummy thinks that Isabel is Anaka. Because
Right. Yeah. The Isabel character is really lightly used up until
last act.
yeah, it was really odd. You see her a little bit, but it's so weird the way she's so underdeveloped. You see her as the princess in the flashback scenes, but and a little bit, but it's odd though, 'cause especially if you watch the original Mummy, how much screen time the actress who was playing a similar character had in that one.
Mm. No, no, yeah, no, you're right. Because she's not at the original dig, and I think they're already married when we cut to the 3 years later. So we get the sense that they've been together, and she's like kind of a thankless role until she's no longer a thankless role, which is when we figure out that she looks like Anaka, and that's the way that John is saved. Is like he's almost pretty much strangled until the mummy realizes that he has a Naka there, and then he stops and he falls. I won't say he falls for her, but his motivations change. Like
Yeah.
he's not going to be just a mindless um, automaton from then on, because that's I that we that's about the only sense of a character that we get from the mummy aspect of Karis.
Karis, yeah.
So
But I do want to point out like a set design thing, which I think is very bizarre in Peter Cushing's house.
oh
So for some reason, going up into the back of the house, there's stairs in the middle of the room with no railings, and I'm like, there's four stairs. I'm like, that's like it's like the weirdest thing. I was sitting there counting. I'm like, why would you put that there? Like someone would bust their ass on it. Luckily, everyone in the movie knows about it, but it's just like it's just you probably didn't notice it, but I had to.
I didn't.
Yeah, it's like it's in it pretty predominantly. Like when the mummy comes in the back doors to get Peter Cushing's character in that sequence, it's just like. I don't know. It's a nitpick on that most people aren't going to notice, but to me, it was like that is a very like trip hazard stairs in the room.
Yeah, but now it's gonna be something I look for next time I
Yeah.
watch the film. I
He-
will.
yeah. Yeah, Peter Cushing's character at one point when he's waiting for the mummy to get there, he's like he's kind of pacing and he's going up and down the stairs. But can you imagine if there's no lights on in the room? It's the middle of the night and you walk and you like but just like bust your ass on the stairs.
Well, keep in mind, I'm trying to remember if this is the movie where they have to light everything with candles or not. Do they have electricity? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. This it takes place in 1859. I'm pretty sure there's electricity. It looks like it.
I can't remember now. I'm trying to remember myself. Oh my God. But yeah,
Yeah,
you're right. That would be one hell of a tripping aspect, but I did not recognize that. But I will think about that next time I watch it.
yeah. You'll see them. You'll see the stairs.
Well,
But yeah, after this is one of the I think one of the best scenes in the movie is he goes and visits other than the mummy killing scenes. Those are the best scenes. But he goes and visits the antagonist Bay like John does to try to provoke him
yeah.
into because the cop doesn't believe him. So it's such a great back and forth between those two actors. Just the dialogue in that scene is so well done.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I have to admit that, with those two actors, they did such a great job with the material, and it still holds up even to this day, because they're both kind of manipulating each other for information. And Peter Cushing's John knows that by doing this, he's putting himself in the crosshairs for the mummy again,
Yeah.
which sets up the well, second to last sequence, because the last sequence would be them going back to the bog again. But
Yeah.
when the mummy comes to attack John, John's ready. He's
Yeah.
told the cops and everything. He doesn't care if he's antagonizing them. He wants to antagonize them. He wants the money. Yeah, he's got his gun all ready to shoot. Oh, dude, this is a rarity in some of these movies. Like he's prepped and ready to kill. He's got that
Yeah,
Van Helsing thing going on for a few moments there, where he's like, I got my shit together. I'm waiting for the monster to show up. I'm good."
yeah,
Of course, it doesn't go nearly as well as he was hoped.
yeah.
The mummy comes in. The cool thing is that the mummy does leave him alive again, but not without kidnapping Isabel.
Naka or Elizabeth is Isabel, but it's a pretty hilarious thing happens actually.
Yeah.
Like the mummy's strangling him, and Isabel comes into the room, and she has her hair up, and so the mummy doesn't recognize her clearly because her hair's not down. And then Peter Cushing's character he's like, Isabel, your hair. And then she's like, what? My hair. And she takes it down, and then he like, oh, okay. He's like, that's a Naka. I'm going to let you go now.
That is quite funny. Now that didn't say out loud. It is quite funny because the mummy looks right at her. It doesn't see it. He doesn't like. It doesn't click. It's the hair. The hair was
Yeah, yeah. Now something really good happens here though that they improved upon the other movies. Like we talked about this, I think, with the creature from the Black Lagoon, and when they pick up the girl and they take her, she just like screams like a fool, and like, and then we were making fun of that before. They don't do that in this film. They do make her pass out.
yeah.
The mummy turns on Bay. Bay comes in there and he does the thing where he's like is basically pick him over her, and he picks her, and the mummy kills him, and her seeing the guy get killed by the mummy makes her faint,
Yeah.
which I guess is kind of a wimpy thing, but it's not as bad as her getting picked up and screaming like a fool. And that's how he gets her, and he walks off with
Seeing
her.
the mummy and passing out, or seeing the mummy pass out, which happens a lot in those movies too back in the day. You know,
Yeah.
how she just sees the mummy and passes out. What kind of stuff is that?
But she sees the guy get killed, like, and that's what makes her pass out because he takes the guy and he like I guess it doesn't show it very good, but he looks like he maybe broke him or
Yeah,
something. You can definitely see him break his
yeah.
arm.
Well, I kind of thought he was
Yeah,
breaking his back or something. Yeah,
yeah,
not really. You hear like a little crunch or something, and you think he's broken something, and I just assumed it was his back. Uh,
right. Yeah, yeah. So then
this
he take yeah,
oh
then then all the cops are there, and then mummy takes her to the bog, and then what's another cool thing that happens is when she wakes up, she doesn't flip out or do what you kind of expected her to do. She very calmly talks to the mummy and gets him to put her down, which that was a really nice touch for her character not to be freaking out when
mhm.
I mean, it's actually like, why do they freak out in situations like that? It's
Required. It was
why not?
required of the damsel
Yeah,
in distress in that
yeah.
period of filmmaking. So we saw that in every movie, sci-fi, horror. That's how it happened. Not dramas as much, not dramas as much, but in sci-fi and horror, the woman had to scream.
You wake up and you see a monster holding you. I mean, you might panic, but I don't know. I mean, clearly it's like that's what you're saying it was required, but it is not the best thing to freak out and try to scream and make the
No,
monster kill you. It's
you're supposed to go into survival mode.
yeah.
You kick and scream and claw their eyes out.
Or you do what she does here, and she stays very calm, and talks to him soothingly, and makes him think she is a Naka, and then tricks his ass
Yeah.
because everybody's got guns. So,
That's why I said this is the last great sequence because we go
yeah,
back to the bog, which is already a great set to begin with. We go back to the bog for the conclusion of the film, and once she steps away, they let all the guns rip on the mummy. I was like, damn.
but now one thing, he does have the scroll in his hand,
Yep.
and then he goes down into the bog with the scroll. So I'm not. And then it just like ends. It's like the end. That's it. You kind of expect maybe something else, but that's it.
But that's something we've talked about in some of the other movies where in the Hammer films back in this era, they just kind of end. When the movie's over, it just credits roll, it's done. They're
Yeah.
no resolutions, any more resolutions. You don't see the two main squeezes. So you don't see Peter Cushing and then in the young actress who plays Isabel get together and hug and shit. No. Scroll goes down with the mummy in swamp, movie ends. Boom, done.
And it's like, is the mummy really done? Oh, he just got shot a bunch of times, and he has the scroll. So what does that mean? It means he can control himself. That he has the scroll. I mean, the scrolls can get in the water, and it's going to disintegrate probably.
Well, he
In
can't resurrect himself. He can't speak.
yeah.
He's got to speak the words. I don't know. I don't really understand why he took the scroll to begin with, to be honest with you. But it does make it more of a finite thing. Like no one can resurrect the mummy again. He becomes a bog mummy
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, but I mean, is he dead though? I mean,
He was
unfortunately,
already
yeah,
dead.
yeah. But is he done for though? I mean, yeah. But the thing is, they do have Hammer did make other Mummy movies. It did not make a sequel to this film though. It doesn't. None of the other movies involved the plot of this. Are all standalone
Yeah,
stories.
yeah, yeah. And which is one of the things I was discussing with on our show with the Curse of the Werewolf. I was wondering why, there was only one movie of that, and you could have done sequels with that one like they did sequels with this. They didn't have to have anything to do with the previous films. They just could have done standalone sequels. We kind of wondered about that. But I get the point. This series is not like any of the other series in that they kind of tried to be sequential and have some type of continuity. The other films in this series are just kind of completely different,
Yeah,
which allows for some more different types of stories and stuff that you're not going to expect or require Christopher Lee to show back up as the mummy.
yeah. Or Peter Cushing. But it's yeah. I know that I think the Gorgon came out at the same time as the sequel to this one, so they were both working on that one probably. It's interesting the way that of the Hammer films, like they have Dracula, Frankenstein, and that's the ones they made a bunch of sequels to. They had after this film they did have access to some of the other Universal film monsters like the Visible Man they never really tapped into. They actually were intended to, but they never did. But then they really were. I guess they had so much success over those other two franchises and then a little bit of this, but that they didn't care about the other ones. They wanted to make their own, like maybe the other movies were standalone films. Maybe there was a diminishing quality to just the more sequels, even though they made a ridiculous amount of Frankenstein and Dracula sequels.
There was some obligation with Warner Bros. Dracula. I do know that with some of the later sequels. I don't know about these or why they didn't do sequels to some of their other franchises. I would have loved them to for them to have done another Plague of Zombies. Some of the other movies to give it another chance, or you know,
Right.
uh,
Yeah.
I wish. I'm glad they didn't try and do a Phantom of the Opera sequel. That just would be really weird. Uh, but some of their other properties, I would have loved to have seen sequels to. They could, but I don't know. It's a good question. No,
Yeah.
maybe we'll ask that question as we continue watching the films for the program. I'll have to do some more research and see why, because that's a good question. That was brought up when I was talking about Curse of the Werewolf. So,
Right. I mean, I just think that I don't know exactly why, but just like a conjecture on it. I just really think it was they were being so successful with the franchises on the other two films that they couldn't maybe they didn't want to they didn't maybe have the funding to do more werewolves. Werewolves are pretty expensive anyway, if you think about it. Especially you have to do a lot of practical makeup, and they weren't quite there yet with this.
mm.
You know.
Well, with Curse of the Werewolf, they only showed him in the last few minutes of the movie. He was like last 15, 20 minutes, and that's all you see of the werewolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for everyone who's listening, you could check out our other episode on Curse of the Werewolf, as well as the Curse of Frankenstein that we've been discussing a lot of, and of course the Horror of Dracula, among other films. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, it's something that I should, one of us or all of us, or something to look into, because we would love to know the answer to this question. So I'll be looking for it, and hopefully I'll be able to give everyone an update on what I find.
Right. Good deal.
Any other thing to say about the movie, Dave?
I think, yeah, that's all I got right now, unless I think of something else.
When we do the
But
other mummy movies, I'm sure you'll come up with something else.
yeah.
All right. So, for everyone listening to the program, we hope that you have enjoyed it. What we like to do at the end of our critique, analysis, and conversation is we like to rate the movie. We do a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being absolutely amazing. Where on the spectrum, Dave, do you put The Mummy?
Well, as we talked about this, I did point out a lot of ridiculous things in the film, but all those things, I still love those things, so I'm gonna still give it a 4-star rating.
Yeah, see, I mean, I'm the same way. Because this is the movie that I absolutely I really do love, and it's entertaining, and I've seen it more than any of the other films in the Hammer Studios, other than probably The Plague of Zombies. I still give it a 4. My opinion has not changed. This program has allowed me to look at it at a more critical eye, so that when I rewatch it again, I will have new things to look for and enjoy more no, next time I watch it. So that's what I like about our conversations. It's like I see a lot, and I know my initial impressions for when I saw the movie, and if I've seen it many times, like this film, I already have some stuff built up. But looking at the film in a critical eye allows me to enjoy it more, and hopefully to help other people seek this movie out and enjoy it more as well. So I want to thank you, Dave, for joining us on Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors. We have had a pleasant time, everyone, talking about The Mummy from 1959. Make sure to check out any of our previous episodes that we have missed it. We have already talked about. And to make sure to like, follow, share, subscribe, do that thing you do to your favorite podcast or your favorite podcast app, Spotify or YouTube, so you never miss the episodes. Regular episodes are every first and third Friday at 8 a.m. Make sure to also check out the original Conversations in Horror podcast, which is every Wednesday at 8 a.m. You can find it in the same spot you find this podcast. And then, of course, our last podcast, our sister podcast, is Conversations in 4Color, which delves deep into comic books, manga, and graphic novels. That is only on our Patreon page, so you have to be a follower or subscriber in order to listen to that podcast. But we do hope that you do, because everything we do here at Conversations in Horror is one big happy family of critique, analysis, and conversations. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today, and have a great day. Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures and Something Wicked Entertainment podcast. It is hosted by Kevin L. Powers, original music provided by Dusty Ellison, produced and directed by Kevin L. Powers. Our executive producer is Kelly A. Inoka. This podcast is produced in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors is part of the Conversations in Horror podcast franchise and is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures. No part of this program can be used without express permission from Broken Lighthouse Pictures.